This is the Angel Nest, where real angel investors and entrepreneurs partner to build great companies. I'm David Hemingway, and this is another of our series of podcasts with Johnnie Walker of Rooled, Outsourced CFO and Accounting Services, and we're talking about how founders are getting funded in this new environment. Rooled are the startup finance experts, and today we're talking about AI. And Johnnie, that's a topic that not only resonates with investors, but also directly with Rooled and all of the innovations that are coming in finance and accounting, right?
Yes, thank you, David. It's great to be here again. And I totally agree. AI is going to be a big disruptor across many industries. And we are seeing quite a lot of focus on accounting and finance as it stands right now. And it's one of the reasons that we built a partnership early on with a company, Truewind, that we're going to hear more about later. And that's to focus on, some of the automation of processes that we see every day and every month in the course of accounting. So that's going to be a big opportunity for us to access that value going forward. And then we will see in the future, I think there's a lot of potential to bring the generative capabilities of AI and natural language into the finance world as a whole, into the roles of CFO and FP&A. So it's an extremely exciting time for definite.
It's a whole new world for sure. And to help us understand it, it's also a pleasure to welcome Colin Rogister to the Angel Nest. Colin and his partner at Beat Ventures find and invest in the companies that are using AI to make money and to save money today. Colin, it's a pleasure to welcome you. Thanks for coming.
Great to be here.
So where are people actually making money and saving money from AI?
Sure. Our firm is called Beat Ventures, and we're a pre-seed seed fund. We've done 15 investments to date, and we invest in three different buckets. So the augmented intelligence, these overlooked industries where we think are going to be particularly ripe for AI disruption, and infrastructure that powers that. So one thing that if you step back and think about what AI is, the type of revenue that is generated at application layer today, you're looking more at the major companies like Microsoft, which is projecting $12 billion with their revenue from Copilot. But the startups are unlikely to have the innovator's dilemma play that they did in the past. Unlikely to see companies like a Salesforce be disrupted by a startup. Rather, Salesforce is going to use AI to take advantage of their data moat and get a much larger lead. But it's these overlooked industries where, like meat processing or bookkeeping, where there hasn't been a tech play made before where AI, I think, can really generate revenue today and going forward.
So you and Johnnie are working together on a joint project, right, between Rooled and Truewind.
Yep.
Johnnie, tell us about that.
Yeah, no, this is one of the key partnerships that we've managed to create with Rooled and with one of your portfolio companies, Truewind. And, talked to Alex Lee, the CEO of Truewind, I think 8-9 months ago first about sort of the plans that they had for, really coming into the accounting domain and bringing a lot of the AI technology that was emerging into it. And so we saw as a company opportunity to work with one of the leading AI technology firms that was focused on accounting to really help build products that were suitable and usable for accountants. And that was born from having done a bunch of research ourselves and seen a bunch of products out there, and really the vast majority of them were not intuitive, did not really solve much of the main problems that accountants were experiencing. So to find a founder who was, investing their time wholly in the technology side that had a strong willingness to actually be involved in an accounting company was just fantastic. So yeah, we're off the races with Alex and his team, and really helping, contribute to that product development, because of course it's really the technology that's going to take us there. But we're trying to give them as much as our learning and understanding in terms of what, where the opportunities could exist in the accounting side. And Alex and his team are taking that and running with it, which is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And that maps really closely to where we are with software and AI. So, 61% of enterprise CEOs want to adopt AI today, but most are in these kind of proof of concept or early rollout, like your partnership with Truewind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, in a way, things have got to start somewhere. And then we want to see, how can we elicit some in terms of the work that we do in the short term from using these technologies. And of course, there's a lot of interest in seeing where that will go.
Right.
It's all going to come back to, in some shape or form, data. And the more that data can be captured and stored and made accessible in a clean way is going to give you something that you can actually use the AI on to actually elicit more value further downstream. So,
right.
I think getting in there early is really important so that you have some idea for where it could go in the future.
Yeah. And with your accountants, how does TrueWind play out now, and how do you predict it to play out later? Is it the type of thing where, it automates 90% of their job, or is it more kind of providing data with a confidence level of X that they then, take the next step and close the loop there?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I would say in some ways, I think it's going to be both. From an accounting side, there's obviously a lot of it's based upon processes that you're repeating continually each month or each period. And being able to do that more efficiently and, of course, with greater accuracy is definitely attractive because that's lower cost and better performance. But, we can't, I think we would all agree that we can't just rely on technology 100%. And there has to be, I think, your phrase of human in the loop is a perfect, I think, way to think about how accountants will use this kind of technology. People in finance will use this technology. You'll use it to get a lot of that easy stuff done. And then, the perfect sort of virtue, I think, especially the way that TrueWind's applying it, is you've got this ability for the AI to identify where it is less certain about some of the assertions that it's making. And then, the accountants can step in and say, okay, well, from all the ingenuity and understanding and skills that we have or the accountants have, that they can actually fill in that and make the entirety of the work accurate. So I think those things there are where a lot of the real power will come from. And I mean, what I was talking about before, I think over time we're going to see some of this other generative capacity, because I think one of the aspects of finance is that so much of it is conversational, so much of it is passing information conversationally and understanding, where things lie, getting a description of stuff, being able to fold in that understanding, especially as the companies get larger, you're talking about budgeting, things become very nuanced and subjective. And I think there you've got the large language models they're trained in natural language, and there's that generative component to it too. And so I think we will see over time some really interesting application, I think, in what I would call the larger finance piece, the sort of strategic sort of CFO side almost in a way of communication.
Right. No, it's super exciting.
So many companies, of course, having a hard time getting funded now, but that does not extend to AI. That still seems to be going pretty well.
Oh, absolutely. AI companies never really slowed down in terms of fundraising. And in fact, when you look at pre-seed seed valuations, you didn't see a ton of a valuation drop like you did at Series B. In part, that was buoyed by the AI valuations, some of which were way out of control, right? So in terms of, I think that we're in a much better place for founders starting today. I think it's a fantastic time to start a company. The talent is flowing. Talent is cheaper. I think the competition is less. Not everyone is and their mom is trying to start a new company, right? And so I think we've had a flight to quality when it comes to founders, and that, before you try to go on raise, really make sure that this is a true problem, that you have an edge. And with AI, there are true AI companies and there are slapped AI in the deck AI companies. And so I'd encourage founders that maybe AI is not a part of their core product to take that extra slide of, this is how we will leverage AI in the future off, unless it is true and real. Because I think, VCs can see through that. But, generally speaking, just to be clear, AI is going to be a part of every company going forward. So, it's not as if you need every company has to have an AI strategy. It's just that, one of the things that our firm, looks closely at is the technical side of things. So my partner, Dave Anderson, comes from a technical background, former engineer, deep tech investor. I worked in the Obama White House National Economic Council on the technology team. And so we can suss out what's real and what's not. Larger picture, I think it's important for founders to think clearly about valuations today. In particular, we're no longer in a ZIRP environment. So 0% interest rate environment meant that risk capital was flowing freely. In 2021, we saw startups raising pre-seeds with just a deck or just an idea at a $20 million cap or higher. And, I think a lot of those companies that are trying to raise their seed now are struggling because one, they raised at too high of a price, and two, the level of traction that's needed to get to the next round today, there's a higher bar for that, right? So, but I think some founders, might think, my valuation slashed in half because I'm not as good of a company. But that's not it. It's the public market multiples have been compressed, and that just flows down the stack. And it takes time to get to the early stage, right? Like the growth stage took the hit first. And so, just generally speaking, I think it's important for founders to raise at a cap for the pre-seed that makes a lot of sense for them to get to the next round. So instead of raising it at 10, maybe they look at raising it at 6. Obviously depending on traction though. But the most important thing is to find the best partner for you to work through the next decade or so.
I want to go back to something you said before about founder fit, which I found really interesting because I always thought that domain expertise was the most important thing. But very often that's not the case with tech companies. You're saying now that's back in fashion.
Well, I think particularly for the overlooked industries it is. And I think also for augmented intelligence and AI companies generally, you need someone on the team, a CTO at least, that has a deep technical background and really understands the AI. For example, one of our companies in an overlooked industry is called Rooled, meat processing for AI. Meat processing is a true $2 trillion industry, and yet they use spreadsheets to determine their cutting, sorting, and demand forecasting today. And there's really no software solution. Rooled uses tried and true AI that comes from Princeton PhD research, and basically they're helping every day with having smarter cutting, sorting that is saving approximately 6% of the animals. So you're yielding more off the animal, meaning that you're having to kill fewer animals, meaning that carbon impact is, if you look at if Valour's mission, and this is a big if, but I think it's very possible, if Valour succeeds with this mission of reducing waste and yielding more off the animal, we'll have more of a carbon impact than the entire artificial meat industry combined. So it's meat processing is a massive industry, and this is the type of overlooked industry that I think overlooked by Silicon Valley, that has just been underfunded. And if you apply AI in a relatively simple way, it can be very powerful.
Great.
I'm going to tell one quick story actually just on this, that a friend of mine from university back in Scotland works for a company called Marine Harvest. They do salmon farming. And so they had these Japanese gentlemen that turned up one time to do a tour, I think, to look at how they were fish farming and whatnot. And they watched the fish, the processing line, let's just say. And at one part of it, there's like the head gets chopped off and the head gets pushed into a bucket. And that brought great consternation from the Japanese, because like that's the most valuable part of the fish is the bit that just went in the bucket.
Right.
And so then Doogie Hunter is the guy's name. He talked about how they reframed part of the process to take the cheeks out, because it was the salmon cheeks that really was, from the Japanese standpoint, were the most valuable. And then suddenly new revenue line created.
Exactly.
From what they considered as a waste beforehand. I'm
right.
sure that's kind of a bit cashiered up, but whatever.
No, that's right.
That's that right. Kind of thing.
That's
like,
right in line.
You just don't see that this stuff is happening. So
exactly. Now, if you're a consumer company and it's consumer social, or I don't think you necessarily have to have a background in X or Y industry. Often some of the best disruptors come from outside. But I think when it comes to the types of companies that we invest in, it's particularly important.
And what size companies are those?
Those are pre-seed and seed companies. So we're looking at valuations in the pre-seed, like 6 to 10, seed sub 25, and in teams anywhere from like just 2 folks in a deck to a team of 8.
Do you use AI to pick your investments?
We do. We do run things sometimes through ChatGPT, but right now it's more human in the loop.
All right. Congratulations, Colin Rogister of Beat Ventures and Johnnie Walker from Rooled, Outsourced CFO and Accounting Services. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
You can find contact information for our guest today at our website, theangelnest.com, where you can also reach me if you know of a company or an exciting opportunity, AI or otherwise, that we should talk about. My email is david@theangelnest.com. I'm David Hemingway. We produce The Angel Nest with help from David Newhoff at the beautiful Art Deco Film Center building just west of Times Square in New York. Thanks for listening, and here's hoping my fellow investors and the founders they support find their next great venture. So long until next time.